There is a specific, visceral shock when the floor suddenly drops out from under us. A personal crisis, a professional failure, a sudden loss. In a heartbeat, the structures we spent years building simply disintegrate. When we hit these profound moments of suffering, the dust barely settles before we find ourselves trapped between two massive opposing walls of doubt. The first wall is the immediate, agonizing cry for an explanation. Why is this specific pain happening to me? The second wall is the cold intellectual suspicion that our pain is a statistical anomaly in a random scientific universe where nothing actually matters. Failing to resolve these questions creates a vacuum. It strips away our motivation and paralyzes the very resilience we need to move forward. However, these emotional and intellectual objections are more than just obstacles. They provide the specific data points needed to map out a purposeful future. Addressing the emotional side requires an acknowledging a difficult truth. A world that is good looks very different from a world that is merely comfortable. For concepts like love and morality to have any meaning, the capacity for free will must be absolute. This chart demonstrates the mechanics of choice. If the pathway to harm is blocked or non-existent, the good choice becomes a programmed, mechanical response rather than a meaningful act of will. To see how our perspective fails us during a crisis, imagine the ground-level view of an animal caught in a heavy steel trap. When a hunter arrives to help, they must forcefully push down on the trap springs to open the jaws. To the animal, this surge of new pressure feels like a second, more violent attack. This is a failure of vertical perspective. The animal cannot see that the painful downward force is the exact mechanism required to achieve its release. But this analogy only works if there is actually a hunter, a purposeful mind behind the pressure. If our universe is a biological accident, then there is no rescue, and the trap is just a trap. To trust that our suffering serves a higher purpose, we must first determine if the universe itself shows evidence of a purposeful designer. We have to look at the math. Specifically, the staggering probabilities required for a functional universe to exist at all. This leads us to the anthropic principle, the observation that dozens of physical constants are precisely calibrated to allow for the existence of life. This dashboard represents variables like gravity and the universe's expansion rate. Each slider is perfectly aligned with a microscopic golden threshold. Even a fractional deviation in any constant would leave the universe sterile, cold, and incapable of supporting a single cell. This precision isn't just found in deep space. It's written into our own biology through the sheer complexity of our DNA. Science can explain the chemical mechanism of how DNA replicates, but it struggles to explain why those chemicals carry 3 billion letters of highly specific, functional instructions. We know that a chaotic string of letters can occur by chance, but when we see a functional code, whether it's a computer program or a genetic sequence, we recognize that information of this complexity originates from a mind. The data suggests that we are not a random accident, but subjects living within a meticulously calibrated system. When we bridge these two inquiries, we find a way to reconcile our emotional chaos with this mathematical precision. Science provides the how of our physical existence, while the navigation of our suffering reveals the why. This reaches its peak in the concept of co-suffering, the idea that the designer of this calibrated system does not remain distant, but enters into the system's pain alongside us. Combining the precision of the physical world with a vertical perspective on emotional pain creates a structure for navigating even the hardest seasons. Hardship becomes an essential phase of development, a pressure point that forces the growth of character and empathy that remains dormant during times of ease. Because our universe operates on a purposeful code, our darkest moments are not meaningless traps.